Hello, my name is Bernard Palmer, and I hope that during the next hour or so we can give you all insight into the world of Bengalese finches. I've been keeping them in partnership with my wife since 1990, and we hope now that we can show you something for the junior or the novices, perhaps even some champions, that you might be able to learn something on how we keep them. Here we go anyway. So in the next hour or so we will show you, starting with the aviary and the flights, and then we will go to the breeding room and show you how we pair up all the colours and the young, etc., in our preparations for breeding.
You can catch them back in here, John, so much the better. good, it is good.
It's smart to let them come in and out of frame sometimes when you pick something that you want to choose.
He actually makes that.
Their daily bowl of soft food. There's several compounds on the market today, but as you can see, as soon as you put it on the ground, they dive into it and they absolutely enjoy it. And we probably give it to them 5 days out of 7, just give them a couple of days break in the flight. But in the bird room, they have it every day. One only has to look and see how they enjoy it, along with their other food. Also, there's a bowl of grit down on the floor, but you can see they do need fresh grit daily. They're into that as well. The floor of the aviary is compiled as a concrete floor, and we keep a 4 or 5 inch deep supply of bird sound down there, which Barbara stretches over most days just to keep it clean, and it obviously keeps their feet clean, free from clogging. Amongst it, of course, there is a fair amount of Worcestershire grit in the bird sound, and we find it invaluable. And once it's got too cloggy, we just scoop it out, and it's a valuable asset to the plants on the garden, and put fresh down. Amongst the birds in the flight, you will see there is a few pekin robins and one odd canary, which we keep for a little bit of song during the day. One of the most difficult things with the Bengalese finch is to be able to sex them. Obviously the ideal way is to actually see them singing, and to probably catch on camera to actually see them singing. What we normally do then, if Barbara or I see one singing, we catch it as soon as possible and split ring its leg with a white ring. We then know in future that that is a cockbird. And you will see there's a chocolate and white here singing quite vividly on the perch. He's already got a white split ring on. Hen birds, as soon as we know what they are, we usually separately split ring them with a coloured ring, so that we obviously know the difference then when we come to mating or pairing up for breeding. There is another method which I do use sometimes when I'm unable to pick out the sexes. I'll show you that later when we go in the breeding room. Silver and cream Java sparrows. still, don't we? We now move on to the coloured standards of the Bengalese. Now these standards are laid down by the National Bengalese Fanciers Association as a guide to you for the standards of what each bird should be. And this is a rough guide. As each cage go up, so we'll go through them. First one is the chocolate and white. And on these, the chocolate should be a colour of a deep plain chocolate, and the bird should carry at least 30% white feather, evenly balanced on both sides. The legs should be dark, the beak should be upper mandible dark, lower mandible steel grey. Singing, John, that bird. We now move on to the fawn and white. The fawn should be of a deep and even colour, and the bird should carry at least 30% white feather, evenly balanced on both sides of the body. Legs should be pink, the beak should be upper and lower mandible light horn. The cockbird is in full cry. That's his mating call now to the young bird. These are the chestnut and whites. The chestnut should be a rich colour of an horse chestnut, neither too dark nor too light. The bird should carry at least 30% white feather, evenly balanced on both sides of the body. Legs should be dark, beak should be upper mandible slate grey, lower mandible steel grey. As you can see, we have in the picture one of each. One's a dark chestnut, one's a light chestnut. Now these have come straight out of their breeding pen where they're rearing 5 young chicks specifically for the cameras. Now this is our own idea of how we breed the chestnuts, or chestnut and whites, is to put a dark one with a light one, which then generates a nice colour chestnut and white. In fact, here is their chicks, which from the first round, which we fostered under a foster mother. You can see how gentle the foster mother is with the chicks in the box. And there again, this is how we breed the chestnut and whites. These are nearly ready to leave the nest now. We now move on to the self chocolate. Now this is probably the most favourite colour in the United Kingdom at the moment. And the standards read that they should have no white feathers permissible whatsoever. The chocolate should be the colour of a deep plain chocolate, extending to head, wings, tail and halfway down the breast. The lower half of the breast, upper parts and rump to be a light chocolate with lacings. Legs should be dark, beak should be upper mandible dark, lower mandible steel grey. Now these birds have been very successful to us, though, not this particular pair, but Self Chocolates on O has been our most favourite colour. And this particular pair are rearing 7 youngsters. As you can see, they are looking a bit ragged, but they're doing a wonderful job at the moment, rearing 7 youngsters, which you will see later on in the film. And let's hope that the chicks from them will be on the show bench later on in the season. But most times in the show ring at the moment, the Self Chocolates just about make up 25% of all birds that's shown. We now move on to the Self Fawn and Self Chestnut. You've got one of each in the cage at the moment. We'll start with the Self Fawn. Here again, no white feathers permissible. The fawn should be deep and even colour, extending to head, wings, tail and halfway down the breast. The lower half of the breast, upper parts and rump to be light fawn with lacings. Legs should be pink. Beak should be upper and lower mandible light horn. And the Self Chestnut, which is the darker bird, here again should have no white feathers permissible. The chestnut should be a rich colour of horse chestnut, neither too dark nor light, extending to head, wings, tail and halfway down the breast. The lower half of the breast, upper parts and rump to be light chestnut with lacings. Legs should be dark, beak should be upper mandible steel grey, lower mandible steel grey. The next colour is the dilute. The feather colour on these should be a dilution of the main colours. Chocolate, fawn and chestnut and variegated birds should carry at least 30% white feather, evenly balanced on both sides of the body. Legs should match in colour and beaks should also match. A nice pair of dilutes look very, very attractive on the show bench, and just at the moment we appear to have bred a few nice ones for this season. And I always think they look that little bit more attractive, especially if they've got a white cap on them like this particular pair has. We have great hopes for these later on, as they're only youngsters at the moment. These are the Self Whites. In fact, this particular pair is a pair of baby albinos. They're very, very young, not having left the nest very long ago, and they're still rather shy. It's very difficult to get them to stay up on their perch. The colour standard reads they should have no coloured feathers permissible. The whole of the bird to be white, both birds to have the same eye colour, legs and beak to be white in colour. What this means is that if you're showing birds, you either have to show a pair of albinos or a pair of black-eyed whites. As if you put one of each in, they will be automatically disqualified from the class. We use these quite a lot to breed with our dilutes, the previous bird you've seen, and you breed some of each friend. If you do this, you breed some dilutes and you breed some albinos. And also you introduce the black-eyed whites. They're very, very good for a stock bird to produce albinos with. More recently, in fact for this season, for 1997 season, the Cremino has been added to this class as well, which we will see in a moment. In fact, this is the Creminos. They are getting quite popular now around the country. As you can probably just about tell, they are pink-eyed and the colour standard for these is that they should be cream in colour, not white. They should be cream in colour but no white feathers. To be quite honest, this particular pair is not the most ideal birds for you to see because they are rather a little bit light. That bird there in question is showing a little bit of white feather. She is not an ideal bird, but nevertheless she'd make a good stock bird. But that is the colour standard for them, and we will see how they fare against the pink-eyed whites during the season this year. This is the crested Bengalese, and the standard reads: the crest should be as large as possible, radiating from the centre point on the top of the head. Colour definitions to apply. Birds must be shown as one crested and one non-crested. What this means is that when you're showing these, you have to show one crested bird and one traditional ordinary bird. Well, in fact, there's two crested in the picture here, but this is basically for the camera's sake. And if you have a bird with a double crest, as you see this particular animal has, he's got a double crest, that is a bad breed fault and should be eliminated. The Bengalese main diet consisted of what's in front of you here. We feed, this is Australian foreign finch, which is the best seed you can probably get. Never ever use cheap seed. I always use the best seed you can get. This cheap seed, one really doesn't know what's in it. So this is the best Australian foreign finch. This is mixed millet, which here again they love this seed as well. And this over here is paddy rice. Now though you probably consume equal amounts of each of this, but given a choice they would probably go for the paddy rice against any of the other two. They really do enjoy that, the paddy rice. And this here is cuttle bone, which no doubt some of you could pick up on the beach, but here again, don't ever come home and put it in the cage. Soak it in cold water for a prolonged spell before you give it to them. Get rid of all the salt that's on it. And this is a block, which obviously they must add, especially now at breeding time. This is a little pot that we use for grit. Find it quite ingenious. Put it in the cage and they can help themselves to it, but they don't waste it or make any mess on it. So we find this little pot very, very good for the birds. This is mineralised grit, and it's imperative that all cage birds have plenty of supplies of this in front of them every day. And this helps to the digestion of their other seeds, and you will find that this pot in a pair of breeders, well, they would certainly consume it in about 2 weeks. So they do consume quite large proportions of this mineralised grit. The other thing we use is this for the water, is another drinker we put in. It's clean water every day, but this is, as you see, it's a slight yellow to it. It's a mineral, there's multivitamins in it, and it's a sanitizer to keep any fungi that should be growing on the water today. So this is another thing we find very beneficial to the birds. So here again, it's changed every day. The nest box is a open-fronted nest box with a perch where they can go in, and you can then open the lid, and then you've got the box in there, drill a hole in the back of the box and hang it high up into the back of the cage. We then fill it with soft hay, and when you've filled it out, make a nice dome in the bottom for it, and close the lid up, hang it up, and certainly within 2 weeks one can expect to have eggs in there. If after 2 weeks I've not got any eggs in a nest box, the birds are obviously not fit and they're removed and put out into a flight again for a few weeks to get into breeding condition before we tries one again. Obviously, this nest box gets quite messy during the breeding season, and although you could wash it out, we tend to burn them after they've been used once and use a new one, as it helps reduce disease, etc. And well, you can't really take any chances with disease. One of the methods that I use to sex birds, if you've got one that you never really see sing, is a needle method. Heaps of myths about this method, but it seems to work for me very well. I think it will not work for everyone. Some people, if they've got too much magnetism in their body, it'll probably not work. All it is an ordinary 1.25 inch needle, sewing needle, with about 6 inches of cotton tied to it, and you hold the bird in your palm of your hand with the stomach upwards, and you gradually lower the needle until it's about 1/2 inch away from the vent. Hold perfectly still, and you will see that needle beginning to span, and it's going in a diagonal fashion over and back the body, which quite clearly points out that this is a cockbird. It's quite clearly a cockbird, as the hand is quite clearly. I'll turn it around so that you can see the other way. Put it again. You see the needle quite clearly going up and down the body of the bird. It's quite an easy way of doing it. If you're husband and wife, if it doesn't work for the husband, it will for the wife, or any other member of the family, come to that. So that is the way I use of sexing. I'll just show you sexing the end bird. Again, you have the end bird, hold her in the palm of your hand. The needle you lower down to the vent, just above the vent, and hold perfectly still. And you see the needle this time is making a complete circle. Try again. There you are, you see the needle is going round in a complete circle round the vent of that end. Makes it quite clearly an end bird. We find this a very, very effective way of doing it. In fact, we told some friends of ours how to do it. They rang me at 11 o'clock at night to say they'd been out and sexed all their birds. Did that show up?
I think so.
I didn't know if you could see the pendulum going or not, but it's...
yeah, because I didn't get you in as such, but
you've seen that for your own eyes, didn't you? There was no fiddle, John. These eggs are obviously clear, as one can see, as you look straight through them with a very fine pencil light. I never ever handle eggs by hand. They're always on a tablespoon. As many eggs has been broken by one's fingers going through them. But this nest, unfortunately, is all clear, so they will obviously have to be discarded. They've been sitting for 12 days, so now is the time to discard them. I normally let them stay for 12 days, otherwise one upsets the cycle of the breeding end bird, and you sometimes get trouble with her. So you leave her the 12 days before you remove them, and then give them another chance to have another lot of good eggs. These eggs have been sitting for about 7 days, and you can see what a difference. These are full eggs. There's 3 eggs out of the 4. There's a clear egg there, but the other 3 eggs are obviously sound. You see the air bubble on the end of the shell there. So one has got 3 out of the 4, which is not bad. You can normally test eggs at 5 days when you can see the blood vessels beginning to form. But for camera purposes, these have been down for about 7 or 8 days, and obviously they're just feeling quite solid now, and you can see that air bubble on the end of the egg. never ever discard eggs without testing them, because many a good egg has been thrown away and you think that they're no good. Obviously, we've got 3 out of 4 on this one. We're now going to show you some 1 and 2 day old chicks which have just hatched. Here again, I don't like handling them too much when they're young, so again I use my spoon to bring them out. And you can see one chick, there's a 2 day old chick, and you can see his crop is really full with food, as it should be when the parents are feeding it well. It's a lovely full crop, and the other one's not quite as full, but bear in mind this one is only 1 day old. Yes, he's got food in its crop. So that's what they look like at 1 and 2 days old. The other eggs in the litter hasn't hatched yet, because obviously they lay them daily, so therefore they will hatch 1 each day. So that's a 1 and a 2 day old. I'll just show you some older ones. These chicks are about 10 days old, and you can see that they're chocolate and whites as the white feathers are just beginning to appear on their wings. And these chicks are now big enough to ring, and I will show you how I ring them. The rings you can only obtain with your own numbers on from the National Bengalese Fanciers Association, and when you get them in the beginning of January, now is about the right time to ring the chicks. So to ring them, you take the leg in your hand and you put the 3 claws together, then you put the ring right over those 3 claws all at once. Gradually slide it back over. Then once you've slid it back, you've got the 1 claw which you have to pull it up over on the leg. Pull it up over that claw like that, and then release that claw back. And it's wrong, it will never ever get that ring off again, and you've got your chick wrong. I'll just show you another one. Here again, you take the 3 claws in your finger, bunch them together as well as possible, and carefully place the ring over the 3. Slide it back gently over the leg, then the claw that's sticking up this leg, slide it over that one, up the leg, and release the claw, and there it's done once again. Now you've got the chick with the ring on. I'll just do the last one. These are very nice chicks. You can see the crops are very full, and they're obviously being reared very well. Again, you take the 3 legs together, place the ring on, slide it up over. Quite easy when you've done 1 or 2, you can get them on like anything, as quick as that. But one thing I would like to say, you will see at this stage just how dirty this nest is. You can see by the time they leave this nest in another 2 weeks, it's going to be a pretty foul state, and that's why we normally dispose of them rather than... You will see in the bottom of the thing there is a couple of eggs which didn't hatch. Well, you can now remove them with a spoon and dispose of them, because they're obviously not going to hatch at this stage. And then return these to mother and father.
Bengalese finch are renowned the world over to being fantastic foster parents, and they're used tremendous amount by the Australian finch boys to rear a lot of their very rare finches that their own parents won't rear, but these will. Here you see a perfect example where a pair of Bengalese, in fact it's one Bengalese, has reared a litter of 5 zebras tremendously well. It's a beautiful, beautiful brood, and she's still caring from them. She thinks the world of them. And even the zebra couldn't have done any better job than that from what she has at doing them. Well, there they are. They're going to mother for a meal now, and at this age, of course, they should be feeding themselves. They've started to feed, but they still like to be topped up by mum or foster mum. It doesn't seem to make too much difference for them if they are reared by the Bengalese, because some people think that they adopt the voice of the zebra, but I've never found this, and these will breed perfectly well another year. We keep our Bengalese and our zebras, all of them are all kept in standard 24-inch cages. I don't like smaller than this because this gives them plenty of room to fly around and exercise. And since we've had this size, we used to use 18 inch. Since we've gone to 24, we seem to have had a tremendous better luck with them, and they do seem to breed very, very well in these cages. There you will see a cockbird displaying again, if we only start up again. This birdhouse is a 14-foot by 14-foot building that's been lined with chipboard, and then inside of that it's lined with tin. This is done mainly to ensure that nothing can't bite their way into the birds. But since doing this, we have created a tremendous amount of humidity in the building, which has helped tremendously for hatching. And they appear to be hatching very, very well. In the ceiling we've got a 12-inch fan which is on most of the time. And this obviously keeps it nice and fresh in there, especially in the summer. Keeps it to 50 degrees even when it's boiling hot outside. It make an awful lot of difference. Lighting is done by two 6-foot true light bulbs, which creates virtually the daylight out on there. And it's the same bulb that's used in aquariums, etc. We find them very, very good. We don't use a lot of eating in there, but there is an eater, a bar eater, but only in the depth of winter is it used because the heat is normally quite sufficient without it. But with the fan going most of the time, it's beautiful to work in here, and you don't get any dust as you sometimes do with birds. The self-chocolates which I showed you earlier in the cage, and they're looking pretty well, seeing that they've reared 6 chicks, and here they are just looking out the box. As you can see, I will carefully try to lift them. There they go. So they've done a pretty good job rearing the 6 self-chocolate chicks. They're always a little bit wild when they leave the box the first day, but this is the first time they've actually left the box. But they will make their way back in again later. You can see at this stage, these birds are inheriting some of their parents' chest shelling, as we call it, and some of them should be quite nice.
Sneak out. Don't worry about it, you won't be on me somewhere. This way.
That is a self fawn at fledgling. That's the first day out of the nest box for this one today. They're in with foster parents. Obviously the foster parents are dilutes, but the chicks are self fawns and self chestnuts. It's a bunch of self chocolate chicks looking over the top of the nest. They will leave the nest any day. One thing I didn't point out earlier, which I should have, is the fact that these are what we called soft food trays. We fill these twice a day with soft food and give them soft food when they're rearing young and just before they hatch. It's quite simple. They just pull them level and they just slide in between the bars like that and down, and it's quite an easy way of giving them soft food. They do like their soft food, and it's quite a good way of getting them to give the youngsters a little bit extra. Now these self chocolates, as you see, are looking rather ragged. They've got little stubbles coming out from their head, but these have been weaned about 2 weeks. They're just coming through with their adult feathers, and got great hopes for one or two of these. They look as though they might make some useful chicks later, but they do look awful at this stage. But this is about the last stage before they develop into their adult plumage, and then you can see what you've got that's ready for the shows. You see they are looking very ragged, their tails are ragged and everything, but they're just coming through now. This is what we call the ragged time, from the baby to their adult plumage. But I think some of these will look quite nice in a few weeks' time. You might see one or two of these on the show bench later. This is a standard show cage as laid down by the National Bengalese Fanciers Association, and this is the only show cage that you can show the birds in. If you show them in any other cage, they will just get disqualified. That's the traditional carrying case which we use when we go to the shows. As you see, it's quite manageable, and this one is large enough to take 4 cages, and one normally puts the cages in quite easily for the 4 cages. That one goes down on them then and clipped up, and there's plenty of vent holes all the way around, yet it's quite easily to carry. In fact, Barbara never objects to carrying these, so they obviously cannot be too heavy for her. She's in sitting on nest of eggs. great. You can see them now, they are showing that. These are 4, 1 and 2 day old chocolate and white chicks.
Bring up these if you want, John. It's a good pair of birds there.
Some nestful there, isn't it?
There isn't very many birds that you could do this with.
Yeah, no. That's about it, isn't it? Yeah. The sooner you put them back and gone in.
You can go up to the next ones if you want to.
These self chocolates here are of Dutch origin. The ones with the silver rings on are what we imported in from Holland ourselves. So in England these would be known as the blacks. Hence their darker colour and their darker lacing underneath their breast. I think they're particularly attractive, and they're being much darker than the English version. If you put the camera to the cage above them, you will see that these are 100% pure English self chocolates, and you can notice there's quite a difference in the lacing on these. It's still my opinion, they're still very, very attractive, but they're not as dark as colour on their lacing as what the earlier ones were. But those are a particularly nice pair, and those are being prepared now for the autumn shows and ultimately the National at Birmingham. Hence, this pair here is another pair of English selfs, and there again they're being prepared for the show season, and they're slightly darker than the earlier pair, but nevertheless it's an excellent pair of birds. And down below here, that is a pair we have bred from the Dutch blacks, and you see there again they are still darker coloured, especially underneath on their lacing, but still very, very attractive. Each day these birds get a bowl of water put in for them to bathe in, plus they get sprayed. I did particularly like that. Just got a few left now in July of the a pair of birds I showed successfully last year with their 5 chicks, which have just left the nest today. You can see they're perched up on the things. They're quite happy to this evening. A very nice brood of chicks, and very, very uniform. They'd be very easy to match up for showing, because they all very marked very, very similarly together. They seem particularly happy. They don't seem very worried with the world. And that's a brood of 5. Over here we've got a brood of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chocolate and whites, and 1 fawn and white, which was fostered with the parent bird. Here again, it's a very nice litter of chicks. Up here we've got some slightly different Bengalese. These are some of Barbara's hobby. She also keeps a few Godians, and these are now just coming through their molt and starting to feather up. And I must say, they're very, very nice birds to catch. I think she's intending to exhibit 1 or 2 of these at the shows later on in the year. Very colourful, the Godian finch. Obviously these originated from Australia, but we're now getting all sorts of colours coming into the country, but these white-breasted yellows I think are absolutely beautiful birds. These are not into their true colour yet. You can still see there's pinheads coming through their head, but they were bred back in just about Easter time, so they've molted through quite well, really.
good close-ups, John.
Look at her head and shoulders and bum like, you know.
Yeah. You've got her chest too, which is all important, especially with the cell. There's a grey on the steps here, John.